How's your production on pasture? Are profits down? Are weight gains down? What are you going to do about it? Do something cost-effective. Do something that will make a difference. To add the first and proven leader in feed-through hornfly control to your cattle rations, ask for it by name, Alticid IGR.
Your land is more than a business. It's a heritage that has been passed down from those who tended it before you, by those who shaped it, changed it, and cared for it. Your land has a legacy, one that you carry on, but also one you build on. At Corteva Agriscience, we are the stewards of a lasting legacy. We have a responsibility to Dow AgroSciences to maintain the relationships and trust they built, and to build upon those foundations, to help you care for your land, to provide innovations that help you protect the hard work and investment you've poured into it, to help you build a legacy that can be passed on for generations to come. Corteva Agriscience.
Ranching is passed down from generation to generation. Know what else gets passed down? The world's finest ranch and rodeo equipment, manufactured by WW Livestock Systems. Ranchers demand quality, and they have come to depend on WW equipment to fulfill their needs, large or small. We invite you to consider WW, made in America, available coast to coast. WW Livestock Systems, the world's finest since 1945.
Good morning, everyone. Today we are having our last seminar of our Expo Week. This is actually seminar number 20. Today we're going to be covering Container Gardening 101. My name is Jeremy Olson. I'm the Garden Center Manager at Producers Cooperative. And here we have Hope Moriarty. She is our Supply Division Manager. And today
we're going to keep things really fun and very casual today. So let's just enjoy this last session.
That's
right, Jeremy?
That's right. It's been a long haul. The expo has been very, very successful. So we're going to go out with a bang on container gardening.
Absolutely. Again, we're going to do things really casual. We're going to let things flow naturally. We're going to talk about the things that we experience daily here at Producers and helping customers make selections with creating their container gardens, and hopefully give you some great tips and some great ideas on how to be successful with container gardening. So let's get started. So why would you want a container garden? Jeremy, what are some of the benefits to having a container garden?
Well, in a container, you can control every aspect of the environment your plant is in. You can pick your own soil, location, and size. You can put it in a space that might normally not be, you don't have any good soil there, a patio. It's just ultimately flexible. You can do anything you want with the container.
Absolutely. I love some of the great ideas that you can find on Pinterest. You can be creative with it. You can do things with your kids. You can do things with maybe some people that are limited with mobilities. Like Jeremy said, I'm going to reiterate, there's so much flexibility and creativity and lots of benefit from container gardening. So that's one of our favorite topics here in our garden center at Producers Cooperative. And if you're new to gardening, this is a great place to start. Start with the container, get your hands a little dirty with the soil, learn a little bit about plants, and then you're just going to love it. And before you know it, you're going to have plants everywhere in your landscape.
That's right.
So if you're new to container gardening, where will we start? Jeremy, if you had someone walk into the garden center and they said, I want to create a container garden, what are some of the things that you would tell them that they need to start with?
I would say first and foremost, what's your goal? Do you want something beautiful to look at when you walk out on your back patio that's going to fill you with joy? Or do you want to grow some herbs for your cooking? Or are you just trying to start growing some vegetables? But it's very important to know what you're trying to do before you start.
Absolutely. One of the things that I am very guilty of doing is going somewhere and seeing something beautiful, containers, plants, and just impulse purchasing. We need to try to contain ourselves and create that goal and that plan before we do the impulse purchasing. Don't get me wrong, we like impulse purchases here at Producers. But to be really successful with your container garden, we're going to create a plan. We're going to think about what kind of container I want, where I'm going to put it, what size is it going to be, what size does it need to be. Is this an area that's sun? Is this an area that's shade, or maybe partial shade? So before you start, where is your location of the container going to be? Do you need a big container, a small container? Is that full sun, full shade, a little bit of both? Is it hot afternoon sun, or is it nice, beautiful morning sun? Those things make a difference when you're actually picking the plants that you're going to put in the container for that end success. So think about those things first before you impulse purchase anything. Then look around. Do you need it to match your house? Is it next to your swimming pool and you're trying to create a fun atmosphere? Or maybe you're wanting to do a seasonal focal point because you're wanting to bring fall to your porch because you're so happy the cool weather has hit. Do you have a water spigot that you can easily access water in this area? Or will you be needing to maybe transport water with a watering container? Those are things to consider as well. I know that at my mom's house, I have an area that I want to create a container garden for her because she has a lot of dripping from the morning dew from her roof that hits one particular spot in her yard. So our goal is going to be to choose plants that love to have wet feet, that tolerate a lot of water. And we haven't created that, but that's an area that I think that we can solve a problem with and add some color. But we need to take in consideration the watering effects and the watering needs, plus the surrounding areas when we start that project. Other things to consider would be, am I doing this for function or am I doing this to decorate? If I'm doing it for function, we're going to be planting vegetables and herbs. Or if I'm doing it to decorate, we're going to be talking about colors and color schemes and contrasting textures. But you know, sometimes you can mix those two things and have a great outcome. So, Jeremy, do you like to sit in the shade sometimes and just relax?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. After checking for fire ant mounds.
After checking for fire ants. And we can take care of that too here at Producers. But one of the quotes I love, especially for those that love gardening, is someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. And we're not planting trees today, but we're planting container gardens. And the same philosophy applies. You need to make a plan before you just start putting everything together. And then you're going to have a very successful, beautiful, productive outcome. So let's start on that plan. Containers. There's all different kinds of containers. Pick the location. That's going to tell you what size you need. Pick your goal. That's going to tell you the size, the style, the theme, the color. Do you need water source? Or are you going to be toting water? What's your budget? Maybe you need ideas. I'm going to mention Pinterest a couple of times. I like Pinterest for getting great ideas. It kind of gets you started and moves you in the right direction. Then you can walk around your house, you can walk around your landscape, and you can feed off some of those things that you saw on Pinterest. If you don't have a big budget, that's okay. This is a great place to start gardening if you have a small budget. And that we need to add some color, need to add some decoration. Small budgets, this is your place to be. So let's take a look at some of these pictures on the screen right now. We have a lot of different types of containers. We have casual containers, we have classic traditional containers, all different sizes, tall, short. We have some non-traditional containers. We have water troughs, so you want to bring that shabby chic farm look, country look to your lawn and your landscape. We have containers within containers. Containers are endless in the options. And this is where you need to start. You need to match the container to your goal and start working from there. So this particular picture that we have up right now, I think we're getting there, is a picture of a repurposed item. I actually did this project at my house. I was going to throw these wicker chairs away. They kind of had seen their last days, but just so happened, I said, well, let's do one last project with them. And I got one, maybe two gardening seasons out of these chairs before they finally went away. But I cut the seat out, I put some poultry netting in there and some burlap, and then added soil, and we made a container garden. This is probably week 2 or 3 after the planting. It's not freshly planted, but it hasn't reached its full maturity. Now, I will tell you there's some mistakes in this picture. Mistake number 1 was I didn't plan like I should have, and there's too many different options in there. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is really a good example of repurposing. Sometimes when you're attached to something in your house or it has special memories, you're not really ready to throw it away, or you want to make better use of our sustainability. Let's repurpose it and use it as a container.
I've got one customer, one of my favorite customers, who repurposes all of her kitty litter boxes. She gets kitty litter in tubs about like that, and she feeds her family vegetables from kitty litter boxes.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a lot of sustainability ideas like that. And that's another good way to couple with container gardener is some sustainability, recycling, themed containers. We have a lot of people that come in and buy water troughs from us strictly to use as a container garden. Jeremy, have you ever planted any vegetables in any water troughs or similar type items?
I've used syrup tubs, and they work fantastic. Drill a few holes in the bottom, and you're ready to go.
So a lot of farmers and ranchers will feed their cattle these big super lick tubs, or molasses blocks is another name for them, and they come in black, red, metal, all different types of containers. And instead of just throwing those or sending them to the dump, those make great containers for vegetable gardening. So ask your neighbor if they're a rancher, do you have any of those extra plastic tubs I can have? Let's use some of those, recycle. So theme tubs, I'm going to throw in too that you don't have to buy everything new. Sometimes you can find these things on Craigslist and on Facebook Marketplace that are used. They have a hole in them, not great for watering cattle, but great for planting plants in. Functional, that goes back to that kitty litter box that Jeremy was talking about. Maybe you're going to have it in a back area or in a greenhouse, and it just needs to be functional and not pretty. That's okay. Everything has a purpose. Pinterest, great ideas to do crafts, DIY projects with your kids. Cruise around on Pinterest, look for some good ideas. I've seen these with like even little pumpkin faces. That'd be cute right now. Your kids love crafts, don't they, Jeremy?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We build lots of stuff.
Lots of gardening projects with the kids. Kids love to see things planted and grown. So they can paint the pot, they can help you assemble it, and they can watch it grow and be successful. There's nothing more accomplished feeling than that end result for a child. Maybe you want something a little bit more affordable, but yet still classy. I think this is a pretty sleek, modern look with these center blocks. Very, how much is a center block? $1, $2, a couple dollars each. You can probably even find some on Marketplace again. But you can use the holes in those as planters. You can paint them. I've seen them paint it with cute little designs, or you can leave them very modern looking like this picture. Maybe memorabilia, maybe grandpa's toolbox or your little Tonka truck when you were little. Also great options for planting. So don't feel like you have to hide some of your memorabilia in the closet or you have to throw it away because it's old and ugly. Let's try to use it and create a container garden with it. So get creative. Let your imagination be your limitations. You can use things like canoes, bicycles, water fountains that maybe are cracked. Parts of nature. You could go to the thrift store. You could use things that are ready for the dump, but let's repurpose those. Get creative again. Your imagination is your limitation. Oops, going too fast there. One suggestion that I have for everyone is that before you actually start putting the soil in your plant or you start selecting your plants is that you go ahead and put your container in the area that it's going to be its final home. Look at it, take a step back. Is this the right size for this area? Visualize the plants in it. Okay, now you're ready to go shopping. It's going to work for you. You're ready for it. If not, this is a great time to make some changes and adjust it. Also, you might want to consider actually doing the project at that final home for the container garden because sometimes they can get really heavy and cumbersome to move. So now we have a container and we need to prep it. Jeremy, what do you always suggest to your gardeners whenever they're wanting to reuse a pot that maybe they had some cattle feed in or they bought an old plant in, they bought a plant in and they planted it and it's just an empty nursery pot?
First and foremost, you've always got to clean and sterilize. One of the great benefits of a container is that you're not bringing in any soil-borne diseases that can be in the ground. But in order to make sure you do have a clean environment, any container you want to wash and sanitize. And that means using bleach. You want to kill all the bacteria, you want to kill everything in there so you get a good clean start.
Absolutely. Another thing that you need to double check is there adequate drainage, especially if you're repurposing something like an old water trough or a wheelbarrow. You may need to drill or punch some holes in there because you can't leave plants in wet feet. Even if they do enjoy having wet feet, nobody can stay in complete water. You need to have some type of drainage to that container. And again, we're going to talk about making sure the location's right, completing that project in that permanent home because it can get quite heavy. So I think one of the next most important thing we need to talk about now is soil. And Jeremy's our soil guru here at Producers Co-op. And to be really successful, you need great soil because that plant is limited to what's in that container. And that's the soil. That's where they're going to get all their nutrients from. Jeremy, you want to talk about soil for a second?
Well, good gardeners, accomplished gardeners, care for their soil. They feed their soil. They're not only caring for the plants in the soil, but caring for the soil itself. And soil is very complicated, but it's full of different elements and it's full of different kinds of life. Fungus and bacteria all make soil active. In a container, in an enclosed area, you want to make sure you put in some good soil. This Happy Frog that we have listed here is an excellent premium soil. And it just so happens we've got it on special for Expo this week. Buy one, get one free. It's a terrific deal. We're hoping a lot of people take advantage of it and get started. There is a limit of 2 per customer. But then in containers, you really are free to do custom soil mixes, a premium mix. If you have plants that like a certain kind of environment, like acidity, you can make that environment perfect for the kind of plant you're growing.
Excellent points, Jeremy. This is the one place you don't want to skip on your budget. You can find things to use as containers around the house. You can even talk to your garden center staff and ask them to find some discounted plants for you that are still going to be viable once you get them in a great container. But do not skimp and buy low quality soil or use sand or something from the yard. This is where you are going to really have the most success, and that's using that high quality soil. And if you do refurbish soil from other plants, you need to add nutrients back to it. So you have this really big container that you want to use, but your plants are going to have feet all the way down to the bottom of that container. And you don't want to buy tons and tons of soil just to fill it up. These are some great ideas that we're about to show you to fill the bottom of the plant up, the bottom of the container up. It's not going to affect the plants. It's going to keep the container lighter and easier to move, and it's going to even help with drainage. One is taking old containers that you actually bought with your plants and turning them upside down and put them in the bottom of the pot. The other one is using pine cones, a very natural way to do things. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to speculate that that might create a little bit more of an acidic environment. So great for hydrangeas, azaleas, things like that. I'm just speculating on that. Some other things that you can put in the bottom of your containers, old pots, poultry netting. Some people want to use styrofoam from packing. All those Amazon boxes come with some packing materials. You can use those. A lot of like recycling. Instead of just putting that plastic in the landfill, let's use it again at least. Some people like to take the fabric, the planting fabric, and put over the containers to kind of give them a smooth base and keep the soil from falling through those containers. You can use that, but you don't have to. Plant selection. Okay, we have our container, we have our permanent home for our container, we kind of know what our goals are. What do we need to do for plant selection? An easy rule of thumb is you can say thriller, filler, and spiller. I need one of each one of those categories. A thriller is going to be your focal point, your plant. The thing that adds extra height, extra color, extra texture. This is your drama queen of the container. Your next point is going to be your filler. This is something that adds some volume, that fills in the holes, that makes it look complete. More color, more texture, complementary colors. It's going to be easy to care for plants. It's kind of where I push people towards. Fast growers, they're going to fill in those holes really quick, but your filler. And your last component is your spiller. It might be a vine that trails or cascades. It could kind of even be something that's tall and just kind of droops over a little bit. Spillers you can be a little creative with your spillers, I think. You don't always have to have your thriller or your spiller a plant. Sometimes it can be a pumpkin or a garden art that you stuck in that container plant. But your spillers are kind of going to be the anchor to the landscape. It kind of ties it all together and smooths everything out. So thriller, filler, and spiller. But that doesn't mean you have to have 3 plants or you're only limited to 3 varieties. Your container does that limitation for you. Plant selection. This is probably one of the most important parts about plant selection. They all have to have the same sun requirements. You need to consider the mature plant at the size of the plant at its maturity, and they need the same water requirements. You can't purchase 3 different plants that are going to be 1 foot at mature and put them in a 6-inch container. These are important elements to know. And if you're new to container gardening or you're new to gardening, that's okay, because us, the staff at Producers, can help you with these selections. Reading labels. Most plants will have labels on them, and they'll have very specific details about sun, partial sun, shade, water requirements, a lot of water, a little water. Use those labels together with the garden center staff at wherever you're shopping. It doesn't have to be producers. We just prefer producers. And ask questions. Make sure that all those are matched up together and they're complements in the water and sun requirement area. Visualize these plants while you have them in your shopping cart. Will they look good in my container? And then most importantly, let's have fun picking out these elements, because this is the fun part now, putting it all together. Jeremy, are you ready for the fun part?
Let's do this.
We're going to make some container gardens. Okay, we're back live, and we're going to actually do some container gardening. I think we have two goals here: a floral container garden and a vegetable container garden.
Got some herbs too.
So we just picked up a variety of containers, variety of plants out of our garden center this morning, and we're going to talk about a couple of them and actually just do this morning on the fly, because that's the fun part of container gardening. I see that we have some chrysanthemums, mums here, lots of color. I like yellow and white mums. They seem to really pop against landscapes. Sometimes greenery can be a little dark, fall can be a little dark, but these show up very well, white and yellow, from the driveway or even walking through the neighborhood. Purple mum, really pretty here. I see that we have some ornamental cabbage, dianthus, pansies, some violas. What do you have over there?
I've got some Swiss chard, some lettuce, some basil, some parsley, a couple of broccolis, and another variety of lettuce.
Okay, let's start. I am going to start with some color. And I think I want to use this container right here. Make a little room. Okay, so I'm going to show you really quick. I'm looking at this container, and it has a stopper in the bottom. We talked about drainage is important. At this point, you would want to remove this stopper so you actually have a drain hole. And it needs to be punched out. And it even says it for outdoor use, drill hole here. So it's pretty thin. You could probably just punch a hole with something. We'll go ahead and put this stopper on here. So a lot of containers have multiple purposes, and so they don't always come with the hole punch. So you want to check that before you start.
All right.
Jeremy is putting in this beautiful, I don't know if you can see it, this beautiful Fox Farm Happy Frog potting soil. It's nice and soft. It smells very earthy, great smell. Can I get maybe 1 more inch, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's a container garden, I'm going to take it up probably a little bit higher than what I would do if it was just a landscape planting, one plant in a pot. It's going to settle a lot. And it's also, I want things to start spilling over a little bit faster. I like instant results. I don't know about you, but I like instant results. And sometimes you don't get instant results when you create your own container garden. You have to let these guys grow a little bit and fill in. If you want instant results, buy your container, get your soil, go to Jeremy, say, hey, show me your hanging baskets. Get a hanging basket, plant that hanging basket, instant container garden right there.
Yeah.
Great idea, especially if you're going to have an impromptu barbecue or a party at the pool. Okay, so what was the first one? Thriller?
Thriller.
Thriller. I'm just kind of really attracted to these mums over here. They have the most vibrant color. They're big. They're going to really fill up this container. I'm going to go right now with yellow and maybe a little bit of purple. Now, since this is where I'm starting, I'm going to have to play off these guys. They like a little bit of sun, water, probably average watering requirements. So I'm going to make my next selection knowing those two components. Bright light Swiss chard. It says vibrant multicolored stems, green to bronze leaves, cook as greens. So this can be ornamental or you could eat it. So I'm going to grab some of this. I'm really liking this. and Johnny Jump Ups. Who doesn't love Johnny Jump Ups or violas? Now you're going, what about, this is my filler. What about that spiller? I'm going to use my Johnny Jump Ups as my spiller because they don't really say that they vine or they trail, but I know from experience that they get really full and they can vine over the plant, the container. And these colors, we have purple in the Swiss chard, purple in the mom, yellow in the mom, and these guys are going to tie all that together. We're going to kind of put several of them around on the corners. You could add in a couple of these Johnny Jump Ups, or no, what are these? These are also Johnny Jump Ups, violas. You could put in a couple of these, just a little bit different texture and variety. And they would work well too because of the color scheme. So I'm going to start planting this. If you want to start talking about some of your vegetables, Jeremy.
Okay. I would like to show you one thing first, and this is kind of a hot craze right now. This right here is called an earth box, but it kind of falls under the category of a wicking tub, also sometimes called a sub-irrigated tub. And there's lots of YouTube videos on ways you can make your own of these. But the idea is there's a reservoir of water on the bottom that continually waters the plant from the base. Water gets sucked up by the capillary action, so you can fill the bottom and it'll stay watered perfectly for a very long time. We didn't mention this earlier, but one of the challenges of container gardening can be watering. A plant in the sun drinks a lot more water than you think it does. You might find yourself watering all the time. So that is a factor when you're putting in your containers. So,
I'm going to jump in real quick. And this Swiss chard actually has two great plants in it. I'm just going to separate it. And it's going to be fine. It's going to be happy that it's going to have a new neighbor. And it's going to add more for my filler. This is something that you can periodically harvest and control the size of too. Herbs are great to mix with plants. Leafy vegetables are great to mix with plants. And you can always control that size with harvest.
okay, so I've got my earth box filled with the excellent soil right here. There's going to be a reservoir of water in the bottom. And like Hope mentioned, we need to consider what the full size of these plants are going to be when they're mature. It's real easy to crowd them in when you're first planting and they're small. And then next thing you know, they're crowding each other out. Some are not getting enough light and you're not as successful as you could be. So I'm going to start here with a cauliflower. That's going to kind of be our centerpiece.
I'm going to steal some soil from this side, Jeremy.
All right. And this one also has two plants in it. I'm going to separate. And we're just going to have two cauliflowers, and we're going to space these towards the back a little bit over on one side and give them at least a foot or more each. Okay? So if you're building this and visualizing, a full-grown cauliflower plant is going to look about like that. So this one's over on the edge, boom. This one's going to be coming out here. Swiss chard seems to be a theme today, but that was part of my original plan. This is such a great vegetable. The leaves keep on growing. You can harvest leaves individually. The stalk is almost like a piece of celery. And then the leaf, you kind of cook like spinach. When I do it, I saute the stalk first and then add the leaves in, little vinegar sauce. It's wonderful. But I'm going to put the chard over on this side. And that's also going to get a little bit higher. So the way I'm visualizing this container, the spot in my head, this is going to be against a wall. The wall faces south. So the sun is going to be going across the front of this container. So I'm going to put my taller things in the back. Otherwise, they would shade out everything that's in front of it. So the sun's coming across this way. These are my talls. I want to make sure everything has plenty of space for roots, but for more particularly for sunlight. And then I've got a little bit of lettuce here. And lettuce, like the chard, is a kind of a continuous harvest kind of thing. You can come out here with a pair of scissors, cut off enough greens for a little salad, and it'll be regenerated in a couple of days. Then we got to add some herbs. If we're cooking up good food, we got to have some basil. Good cooking is inconceivable without basil. I'm going to put some basil right there. That'll grow up in front of my cauliflower. And I'm going to do another kind of lettuce. The lettuce you can kind of crowd in there because you're going to be harvesting that small. So we're going to put that right next here. Okay, so I'm going to have my height in 3 across the back. This will kind of go off to the side. This is going to stay lower. And then just to round it out, just because I like my cooking with a little garnish, we're going to put a parsley here in the middle.
Now, some of you may be saying, Jeremy, that's a lot of plants in that little container. Are you overcrowding them? Y'all just scolded us for overcrowding, but it looks like you're overcrowding. Why are these guys in the front not overcrowded?
Because the plan for these is to be harvesting as we go. If a full-grown basil can get real big, but I'm going to be cutting on this. So plan is frequent harvest stuffs in the front, and then I'll have it harvest my cauliflower head and chard leaves as we go.
Okay, so I'm finished with my container. I probably would add a little bit more soil to it, water it, add a little soil to it, level some things out. I kind of planted things where it would be sitting in the middle, so you could view it from all angles. If you were planting something that was going to be against the wall, you would use that same technique, something taller in the back and let things cascade. Now, you're like, oh, that doesn't really look like some of the pictures you showed us, Hope. You're right, because this is an infant container garden. You're going to have to give it a week or so to have that whole full look. Maybe marginal with having 2 mums in here. If maybe I should have split this bigger mum and used half of it for another container. But mums aren't going to grow a lot during this growing season, so that's going to be okay. The Johnny Jump Ups will grow a lot, so they're going to fill in a lot. This Bright Lights color Swiss chard is going to add some color because as it grows, it will have some red tones to it. It's going to add some more color. I see the Johnny Jump Ups cascading over, the Swiss chard getting a little taller, but you need to continuously harvest the Swiss chard as well, or it will get too tall and overpower your mums. So this mum has a lot of buds on it. This mum has a lot of blooms on it. So hopefully they'll cycle through where one is always a primary color and then the other one has been finishing out. So Swiss chard and Johnny Jump Ups filling in, mums as a focal point. I like this pot because it's very neutral. You could put it in any landscape and it almost disappears. But if you wanted more color to this is something that you could easily paint, make a different color. Or if you're putting it against a white house or on a white bench, it then becomes very colorful because it's a contrasting color. Jeremy, what are some of the frequent asked questions that people have after they finish their container garden that you get in the garden center?
I'm asked about fertilizer
Okay.
a lot. A lot of different ways you can fertilize. The soil you put in initially is going to be your first source, but in a container, a lot of times a water-soluble fertilizer is going to be what you want. When you water it, put in some Miracle-Gro, some of the Microlife liquids. Liquid water-soluble fertilizers work very well.
Absolutely, especially with container gardeners. Virtually every time you water, you could add a little liquid fertilizer to it and give them a little meal with their water.
One of the benefits of container gardening, I forgot to mention earlier, is weeding. Very simple to weed. You're not bringing in weed seeds from existing soil. Easy to keep that clear. Always be on the lookout for your pests. Looking at the underside of the leaves if you need to apply something that's feasting on what you want to eat.
So that's a good point. So there's a lot of pesticides, organic and traditional, that maybe aren't perfect for container garden because we need to read the labels. Sometimes it's a different dilution rate for things that are in containers versus things that are in the ground, because obviously they're going to be naturally diluted a little bit more when they have more area to disperse across in the ground.
Right.
So make sure you read your labels before you use any kind of pesticides on your container gardens, whether it's organic or traditional. Something that I would like to mention is that all of the plants in this container are suited for the fall temperatures. I encourage shopping the discount tables at garden centers, but during season changes, you do need to be cognitive that some plants don't tolerate cooler weather, and you wouldn't want to put them in a container going into the fall or into the winter, and they're a summer loving plant. So be aware of the temperature that you're about to move into, the season that you're about to move in. Make sure all these plants match each other.
It's a good point about temperatures, because a lot of people like to put tropicals, plants, and citrus in containers.
I think we have a tropical right here.
Yeah, there we go. And so some things they can't handle our winters. Like Meyer lemons, some kinds of tropical hibiscus, they can't handle our cool season. So you can have a beautiful container in the summer and then move it and bring it in and protect it for the winter.
Absolutely. A lot of those plants are really big and heavy, and we recommend that you put those on casters. It makes it easier to move in and out of that greenhouse or inside your house. Check them for insects and bugs before you move them in the house or before you move them into a greenhouse with some of your other loved plants.
Yep.
Okay. I think that concludes our session on container gardening. Again, my name is Hope and this is Jeremy. We work here at Producers Cooperative. We have a full garden center staff as well as the two of us that will be happy to help you make a container selection, plant selection, answer any of your lawn, landscaping problems or desires. We're here to help you. So, Jeremy, before we close, do you smell something?
I think I might.
I think I do too. Come here to Producers today. I think we have Crack-A-Lackin' Barbecue here today, a food truck, and if you make a purchase, I think you get a voucher. Is that the story today that I'm hearing? So come visit us here today at Producers Co-op as we round out our expo, because Crack-A-Lackin' Barbecue food truck is here.